some things have been making the rounds lately in terms of the OGL. I think we're calling them leaked tidbits, documents, portions of the new OGL 1.1. I haven't seen them myself firsthand. And by the way, I am not a lawyer. I don't know anything about these kind of contracts, but I think I can read the tea leaves okay. And I think I can bring potentially some common sense to bear. So making the rounds, people have been talking a lot about it, and I'm hearing a lot of lingo going around, people throwing on words like they are revoking the OGL. Yes, they can. No, they can't. My cousin's father's daughter's nephew's wife worked on this, so they know that they can't. Or but my uncle's daughter's cousin's nephew's husband knows that they can. All this sort of stuff's going around. I thought I could take a moment to break down what I know, which is not a lot, and see what it tells us about what's going on. So, first of all, this information came from a couple different sources. You can go and find them. Some leaked tidbits about this new OGL 1.1. And I want to talk over really, I think, two or three things that I guess are noteworthy from what I've seen that's filtered down onto the internet and kind of what it means. The first thing is that into the existing OGL, which I guess is 1.0A, and forgive me if I get these version numbers wrong, there is a clause, which I think is a pretty standard clause that says, hey, Wizards can update the terms of this licensing agreement of the OGL. If you've been around really anything in the last 20 years, you're like me, you've seen this stuff hit your inbox, you get these notices, oh, hey, such and such company has updated their terms. Here are their new terms. Here are the new terms. We've updated our terms. I don't think in terms of what businesses do, in terms of what businesses do, whether we like it or not, whether it's friendly or not, this seems to be something that is not unusual in terms of these types of licenses, that one party or both parties of the license reserve a right, I guess it's usually one party, reserves a right to update the license. And that clause or some version of it appears in the current OGL. And by the way, these documents, the OGL is not particularly dense. It's not 50 pages long. Go and read it. Don't listen to some armchair person claiming to have insider knowledge or legal knowledge. Just read the thing. It's not super hard to read. It's not particularly dense linguistically. I think you can read it and get a grip on it. But that clause exists. So there's sort of thing number one. Yes, they can update the agreement. Probably the other thing, number two, in there is that the other parts of the OGL are based on it or rest or the ability to go by the tracks of that OGL have to do with it being the authorized version of the license agreement, right? While this is authorized, these things are happening. They don't use that term, but that word comes up, authorized, which I'll come back to in a minute. So from the existing OGL, we can have two takeaways that are important for this discussion. First, that the terms can be updated, and second, that the terms are in effect as long as it is authorized. Skip forward now to what has dropped loose into people's inboxes and has filtered its way on the internet in terms of 1.1. First of all, it is an update. So Wizards is saying, hey, we are updating the license. As I mentioned before, this is something that businesses do. I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad, but they can do it. It's written in there, so they're doing it. It is an update. As part of their update, they are adding or changing a clause that now gives them the right to revoke that OGL. So we were in 1.0 that didn't have that kind of clause. Now we're in 1.1, and 1.1 says that, hey, Wizards is saying, yes, under the terms of this new OGL, we are claiming the right to revoke it. Now, I'm not a legal expert. I don't know anything. Please do not make any financial planning based on what I'm saying here. But my guess is that whether we like it or not, this is something that they can do. They can update the OGL. They can add a clause to the OGL saying, hey, now we are saying that we want to have that right to revoke it. And now we're adding that in. So the upshot of all this might be that if you're on OGL 1.0, now they're saying, hey, you need to go to OGL 1.1, and then from here, we can revoke that license from you in just sort of terms of, you could say like, okay, they can kind of revoke it, but that's not really what's going on. And certainly when people are saying what's legal or what we think might be legal or illegal, the fact is they're not revoking that license. What they are saying is that under the terms of the new license, they can revoke that new license from you. And then the other thing they're saying, which is getting back to the authorize, is that they are deauthorizing the old version of the OGL, which just from a business standpoint, it makes sense. If a company comes out and says, hey, we're updating our license agreement or terms, whatever, our contract, whatever we're doing, I'm sure there must be some language in there so that you can't just say, well, I'm just going to stick to the old one. No, that's not an option. We've updated it. You must stick to now the new version of the license, because the fact that we could update it wouldn't make much sense if you could just ignore our update. So then they're saying, hey, now that this new version is going to be in effect, we are deauthorizing the old one. If you were on the old one, you have to come to the new updated one. Again, whether I like it or not, and I don't tend to like this sort of thing, but I think it's kind of within their right to do. So yes, they can, if this is indeed what ends up coming out. And who knows, maybe this big hubbub, they'll change their mind, say, oh my goodness, the press on this is terrible. We're looking worse. We're looking like maybe how we really are, but we don't want people to perceive us how we really are. So we better change it. Or maybe they'll cover their ears and just not pay attention and go, whatever the case is, I think that by the steps they're going, they are sticking to what I understand is kind of the letter of these types of agreements, knowing nothing other than, I think as everyone else, having been subject to them and the whims of companies coming in and changing them kind of as they please. The language is in there for them to change it, so I guess they're changing it. Now, what does all this stuff mean? One of the other things that came out of this current OGL leak, if you will, was that, hey, you own, if you post something under OGL 1.1, you own it. It's yours, but you give some kind of perpetual, forever license to Wizards to also use it, do whatever they want with it. Well, this sounds awful, but I'm not going to say that I called it, but I have talked about this in the past. This seems a lot like they're funneling people. They want to funnel you towards the DMs Guild model of third-party publishing, at least for smaller publishers. I have no doubt that the bigger publishers are going to have their own deal with Wizards, and they'll work it out, and they may not like it, but they'll figure it out. This is all for all us other small fry here on the outside looking in. They're trying to push us into that DMs Guild model, which in some ways this is, I guess, a slight improvement, because I believe under the DMs Guild you don't own it anymore. You publish on the DMs Guild, you get a little monies for it, you get that percentage of sales, but then you've essentially given all rights. It's gone over to Wizards. You've basically, and you've put it into the Wizards D&D Megaverse, and there it now exists as their property, I think. Which is why I always asked, if you cared anything for your creations, why would you do that? But that's a whole other video. In this case, they're saying, no, you own it. It's yours, but we can publish it. You're giving us license to do whatever we want. Now, for most people, this is going to sound a lot worse than it really is. Let's face it. If you're creating the kind of stuff that's going in the guild, I don't think Wizards cares. I don't think they're going to take your thing and suddenly run with it. You're probably 99.99% of the people out there aren't creating the next Drizzt or something that the Wizards are going to come in and go, ha, and yoink out from under you. But they could. And there wouldn't be much you could do about it. Now, should we care about this? Yes, of course we should. Is this awful for the smaller third-party publishers and potentially even the larger third-party publishers? Yes. Do I think that this is now going to cause some huge apocalypse for Wizards? No, I don't. I don't think this is the same case as with 4th edition, which was having a whole bunch of troubles in the fact that they had put a very much more stringent kind of licensing agreement on top of it. Didn't help, and there were companies that were in position to take advantage of the faltering, that, Pathfinder being sort of on the rise. But as I've mentioned before, Pathfinder's kind of faltering. It's not dead, but it's not doing well. I don't think it's in a position to all of a sudden promote their own OGL and say, now come right for Paizo. And as somebody pointed out on one of the videos that I watched on this last night, this could potentially spell trouble for Paizo, because a lot of their stuff, all of Pathfinder 1, and I don't know how much Pathfinder 2, is based on parts of the OGL. A lot of stuff is based on parts of the OGL, and they are as subject and bound to it as anybody else. So who even knows if they're going to be, how they're going to be able to deal with this, if they're going to be able to deal with this, however that's going to shake out. It's going to have a lot of repercussions, I think, for folks. Of course, depending on what Wizards actually does, they could have these clauses in here and never use them. But of course, the fear is that if they have the clause there, somebody at some point will get that itchy trigger finger and hit the nuclear option, so to speak. Other folks have been saying, "Oh well, is everyone just going to jump to some other game that has an OGL?" And I think that's a little bit backwards thinking. I don't think people write for D&D because of the OGL. I think they write for D&D because it's immensely popular. And oh, by the way, they have an OGL that makes it kind of easy. I don't know what game. We could probably look and see what games are in second place, third place. I think Chaosium is big worldwide. I don't know in the states. Modifius has a good footprint, and so does say Free League Games. I don't know what OGLs they have for their different properties, if they have any, but I don't know if they really come close, at least in terms of in the U.S. of what Wizards has. So sure, while you're free to write for whatever system you want, that's great. Having a great OGL isn't going to magically make people jump over that system. And by the way, I still think, which I've maintained for a lot of this stuff, is what we on the internet decide to care a lot about and fight about is vastly different from what the large population don't care about. The folks that just go into their local gaming store, they hit Amazon and they find a book they like and they buy it. And they buy the latest campaign book from Wizards because it's the latest campaign book from Wizards. And let's face it, even folks on the internet tend to do that same thing. Folks just do that. They're not concerned about the OGL. They don't care about the OGL. It's just a fine print at the end of a book that they don't read. I know that I wouldn't have cared about it if I hadn't kind of gotten involved on the creator side. And I think that a lot of folks, even folks who are fairly savvy in internet matters, don't know it and don't care about it. Now, can we make them aware that this is a really bad business and that bad business model and we should make Wizards pay? Of course we should. But do I think, maybe just being jaded, that this is going to all of a sudden galvanize a revolution and bring down Wizards and Hasbro? No. Unfortunately, I don't. But we'll see. I would love to be proven wrong. And hopefully this is all a big mistake and they'll put up some release saying, no, 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 this was just a draft. And this was supposed to go in the trash bin, not into our email box. How silly of us. Here's something a lot more friendly. We'll see. But this is all I know for now. Read the agreements, by the way. Don't trust me. Don't trust some other folks. Don't trust people saying, oh, this, that, and the other. We're all just internet heads. You don't know us. What do we know? We know nothing. So read the agreements. Let me know what you think. But that's my take. Other than that, game on, and I'll talk to you later.